All right, we're gonna give everybody about 2 or 3 more minutes for everybody to get on, and then we'll get going. All right, so Ross, can you still hear me?
Yeah, you're good. I can hear you
Okay.
perfect.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get going since we don't have anybody do this just like piling in. So you should be looking at a screen that says Director's Update right now. If not, let me know. And so let me just introduce myself. I'm Brandon Sanders. I'm the Director of Aviation for Texarkana College. Over the past year, we've been setting up this. It was actually technically the past 3 years, but over the past year, I've been on board setting up the 147 school, which you'll hear me say 147 multiple times because that's the technical term for a aviation and power plant or airframe and power plant school. Um, and you'll learn that whenever you get to the course. So I'm going to give you an update of where we're at now. So let's see if I can. All right. So, well, now there's people want to hop in. All right. So here's kind of a rundown where we're at. So we were projected to start in August on the typical start date. What's happened is that we applied. One of the first things that I did whenever I came on last July was apply to the FAA to get us in line for our 147 certification. Now, it kind of collective wisdom is it takes a while to get through the queue. Now, once we got our first letter back, the FAA told us that we were 352nd in line. So I was kind of like, well, maybe we'll get there, sometime about this time this year. And then they sent me another letter about December of last year and said that we had moved from 352 to like 200 or 280 or something like that. And so I knew we were making progress, but it was getting slow. Well, the FAA realized how slow the process was, and what they did is they went through there and they said, "Hey, if you don't have all your paperwork in, we're just cutting you from the line totally." And so what would happen was that like people would get up to where they were number one, and then the FAA would contact them, and they'd be like, "Oh, I forgot to even apply because it's been so long," and then they're like, "Okay," so then they would go back to to number two, and then they would keep on going until they found people that were actually ready. And so what they did said that, hey, look, if you don't have all your interest or your kind of like statement of like this is how you're going to do your business, then we're just going to kill you from the program totally, and we're start from scratch. And so since I that made that a priority, I had already had all of our paperwork in. We were actually number one in line. So we went from like 200 and some odd to number one on March the 1st of this past year. They called me. They said, "Okay, hey, look, y'all are getting ready to start your certification. Are you anything that you need to get tied up now? Let's go." And so I said, "Okay, cool." About April 1st or so, we were supposed to get going, and I finally got our actual inspector. So you think it's an organization, and we finally get whittled down to the guy. The guy that actually met me told me, and I quote, "We can move as fast as you can." And I was like, "Well, I can move pretty damn fast." So like, here we go. And I had him all of our paperwork within about 3 days. And nothing happened. I emailed him. He's like, oh yeah, we'll schedule a meeting. And then nothing happened. And this goes on for me emailing him getting frustrated with me emailing him for about 3 months. Then he says, okay, hey, look, in June, after the president of the college emailed him, we'll finally have our pre-application meeting. So we're like, okay, cool, we're going to have that. And then he cancels it the night before, like literally like 7 o'clock that night, an email goes out, I can't make it to the meeting in the morning. We're getting pretty frustrated about that. And then he sends an email, says like, we'll reschedule for the next week. So, okay. Then the next week comes and goes. Like I can't get him to respond to my emails about like, when are we going to meet this week? And this happens for about 2 weeks. And finally we get him to sit down. And we get in the meeting, and then they finally turned us on. Now at this point, it's about midway through July. This is about a week ago, and so like we're at this point where like we've sent him all the rest of the documentation, and I'm waiting for him to review it. That being said, the likelihood of us being able to have our 147 certification come August 1st is very, very low. According to his boss, it could be done, but I don't have a whole lot of faith in the guy that's assigned to us for obvious reasons. And so we just kind of collectively made the decision to bump it to January 1st. Now, that doesn't really change anything. It just basically gives the FAA more time to waste. And hopefully they'll get us through this process. Midway through the fall semester, we'll be good to go from a regulatory standpoint. So I'm projecting that the completion date for our 147 certification and to be clear, like we are accredited through SACS, which allows us to actually run a college and do all the regular things. This is strictly the FAA's permission slip for us to write or to generate the form that allows you to go take your test, that allows you to become an A&P. That's what the 147 certification is for. And so like by 1 December, we should have that wrapped up. But now that's a tentative date because there's nothing saying the FAA can't like screw around and like waste more time to the point where we're having this conversation again in December, which I hope we don't. Hopefully we don't, but we're talking to them and we're working our way through it. So hopefully it'll go just fine. All right. So the other kind of updates is that like we have all the equipment, we have everything that we need to go. We're waiting on some engine stands and some avionics test kits to come in, but we can make do with what we have to get going. So all the people are here, all the equipment's here, we're ready to go. We're just waiting on the FAA, and that's it. We will be offering high school dual credit classes that don't require certification this fall. That's Tango Flight. You might have you can look me up on LinkedIn. There's like articles that I've linked to about it. What that'll do is it allows high school students, if you're a high school student, to go ahead and start training, because like we'll be able to give you dual credit or 15 hours of credit for your general semester for completing Tango and passing the test. It's all the same information. It's just delivered differently. In Tango, you build an airplane. Here, we maintain an airplane. And if you're not one of those people that are in high school, they're looking for volunteers. So like if you want to show up and help some high school kids buck rivets and match drill holes and read engineering diagrams, well, it's the same stuff you're going to be doing here. So if you wanted to get involved sooner, we have Texas High will be doing it, and then we'll have another operation standing up at Texas America Center. So on both sides of Bowie County, you'll be able to actually kind of get going. All right, so to kind of give you an idea of like where we're going with the program, we want y'all to succeed. They're kind of like a little tidbit is that A&P graduates generally don't ever go take their test. And the ones that do take their test, they only seem to make an 80%. Now, in order for them to be able to go take the test, we know that they have the knowledge. And so like the question becomes like, why aren't they taking the test? And then why do they seem to struggle so much on the actual like oral and practical exams? And the ATEC, who's the Aviation or the Aerospace Technician Education Council, they did a big study on this. And they basically said it boiled down to fear. They were all just afraid. There's a lot of them they just freaked out and they never went and took their O&Ps, and so they never became an aircraft mechanic. The other ones got in there and like whenever they did a kind of like an exit poll of them, they said that they were terrified. And not necessarily the test was that hard, it's that they were just so worked up going into it, it caused a problem. So we've structured our curriculum to emulate the OMPs the whole time. Like you're going to study at home, and you're going to show up, and you're going to take a test, before you get here, and that's going to prep you for the written test. And then whenever you get here, you're going to get kind of like a safety brief, and we're going to turn you loose on the hangar floor, and you're just going to go right to work. And then the instructor is there to mentor you in the work that you're doing, and then all your tests will be oriented towards basically telling that instructor what he needs to hear to pass you on that class, and then taking a practical test, just like you would do with the OMP. So the idea being is that you've gotten so many reps in doing this, by the time you get to the end of it, you're going to just sail right on through. Then the other kind of thing that we have talked about on primary goals is the throughput of students. So we want to get to 300 students graduating on an annual basis. Right now we have about 40 some odd in the pipeline. We haven't really advertised that much. So getting the students here won't be that big of a deal. The reason why I want to bring this up to you guys is that there's all this like anxiety of like, oh, can I get in? You'll get in. Like we have as much appetite as possible to try to metabolize you as applicants as fast as we possibly can. It might just not happen in the timeline that you want. You might come in one of the later cohorts, depending on where you're at in the admissions process. Which brings me to another point. Like, get your admission stuff done. Like, go take your TSI test. Go take the aviation department test, so that way you can get as high a number because you're ranked on from like 1 to whatever the last person is in. And then we're going to go on like rank order precedence. So like if you were the first person here, well, you're going to be in the first cohort. If you're the 40th person here, you're going to be the last dude in the second cohort. Yeah. So other details that I kind of want to go over with you. This program is unique in that it's completed in less than a year. Most A&P programs are done on a college schedule, to where you show up for 2 hours on one day and then 2 hours on another day. Well, that takes about 2 years to get through all the coursework that we need to get you through. We're doing this academy style, all right? And the reason why we're doing this academy style, which means Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, or 8 to noon. Next year, we'll add an afternoon cohort in, and we'll be doing it in the evening. Same coursework, everything else is just like 2 different times of the day. The reason why we're doing that is because the whole purpose of this program is to prep a workforce for heavy commercial aviation. Now, if you're not aware, but the airport is setting up to bring in twin aisle heavy commercial jets. So these are like 747s, 777s, so 787s, those kind of like larger jets for maintenance. Now, our job is to get local people ready to go make the big bucks working on the big jets. And so everything that we're doing here is tailored so that way we can prep for working at one of those maintenance, repair, overhaul facilities that will be here in the next couple of years. And if you hear me say MRO, that stands for maintenance, repair, overhaul facilities. And that's basically, I always describe it as Jiffy Lube for airplanes. And that's basically what it is. You'll have a jet that'll pull up, you'll strip it down to its paint, and then you'll rewire it, rebuild it all the way back up. That's how I went from general aviation into heavy commercial aviation by working at one of these places. And so everything that you'll do here is exactly like those MROs work wherever you go. We're also putting an emphasis on modern technology with avionics and composites. So like this is a unique course in the fact that you're going to build your own parts. So we have a CNC machine out there on the floor. You're going to learn how to cut molds. You're going to learn how to cast fiberglass into those molds and then set them up so that way you can put them on an aircraft. Now, let's see. Okay, so this is kind of like what we expect this coming year to look like. The general is supposed to happen in fall 24. It's looking like these are all going to shift to the right by 1 semester. I just didn't want to go through and update all the little numbers on the slide. But anyway, so like that's how everything will work. So you can kind of think about where you're at in the rank order and kind of place yourself on which one of those cohorts you could will work for you. That was coming up the next year, and then that's the year after that. All right, so now I'm going to try to answer as many questions as I possibly can. Let me see if I can stop sharing my screen so you can just see me. You should be able to see me now. But yeah, so if anybody has any questions, just go ahead and shout it out.
Yes, sir, I do. Do y'all have a degree plan for the aviation program?
Yeah. So, okay. So the program is laid out into kind of two pathways you could take. You could do a 45 hour certificate and get just your airframe and power plant certificate. All right. Now, that 45 hour certificate is all you really need to go walk on and start working. Now, I will say this. The degree plan option, the second option, is to get a associate's degree in aviation maintenance technology. Now, the reason why you would want to do that is because what you want to do is set yourself up for success in like 10 years down the road. Now,
Yes, sir.
when you get to a you get to like say like you're working at Boeing, is where I worked at last before I came here. This is how things typically go. You have the new mechanic that comes out there and he's like, I don't know what to do with my hands, and they give some old grumpy guy to him, and then he becomes like his like little mentor. And then he becomes kind of an experienced mechanic and somebody they can rely on. They put him on the airplane. Well, then after a couple of years, there's always like a vacancy for a team lead. And let's say you're a career-minded individual, you're like, I want to be a team lead because I want to advance. And so next thing you know, you're running your own stall. You have a team of 5 to 10 guys, and y'all are coordinating maintenance on the jet. Well, then you get to the point where you're real comfortable there, and you're like, I want to grow some more. I want to go become a manager. Now, being a mechanic and being a team lead, pretty similar. Being a team lead or a mechanic and a manager, wildly different scenario. So you'll go from being like the dude that sits in the stall and then yells at people and hands out work and stuff like that to all of a sudden now you're in a suit and tie showing up, and you have like ultimate authority on that aircraft, and so that you can release it to wherever else. You're going to go from like learning the world of like aircraft maintenance manuals to all of a sudden looking at spreadsheets and like responding to emails and managing people and looking at like things through the kind of lens of like leadership. Now that degree plan, that 60-hour degree plan, sets the stage for you for follow-on training to kind of master those skill sets. So in 10 years down the road, whenever you're looking to become the manager at American Airlines or whatever, you're set up for success, and you're not the guy that's saying like, well, I only got my A&P and now I have to go back to school. And you know what? I have 2 kids and I'm working 80 hours a week because it's aviation. And so, so that's the kind of the so what on the agreement. So you have 2 options. I'd highly encourage you, show up, do your A&P first, because that's what's going to get you paid. Go online and then knock out the other 15 hours, get your associate's degree, and then start looking at like, okay, where can I take this to get my like maintenance management or business degree that'll apply there? And there's options for that, and we're cultivating some options locally for that. I mean, that's a good question.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. What else y'all got?
How much is it gonna cost total?
Yeah, so the cost is going to be just TC's regular tuition rate, which maybe Linda or Hannah can jump in and kind of like give y'all the so what on that. But you can find it on the website. It's a public school. It's pretty easy to look up. The only additional cost is $2,800 over the course of the year, and that's just for consumables. So like you're going to taxi our Learjet, and so the thing is not easy on gas. It's like it burns like 600 pounds an hour, and like jet fuel is pretty expensive. And then there's other things that like you'll have to have sheet metal and like hose lines and rigid lines and safety wire and all the kind of stuff that goes into it. But all in all, you should be able to come out less than like $13,000 or so, but depending on what the tuition rate is. But I'll let Linda or Hannah or anybody else jump in if they want.
Hey, Brandon, offhand, is it 18 credit hours the first semester? Or is it 15?
So I believe it is 18.
Yeah, that's what I think. I don't have it right in front of me. So if you live in Bowie County, tuition, all mandatory fees, and doesn't include the 2,800 in this, it would be 1,832 for tuition and all mandatory fees for the first semester of 18 credit hours. And then you attach that 2,800 on top of that. Because the 2,800 includes the course fees, isn't that correct?
That's correct.
Yep.
So, like, kind of for perspective, let me tell you, like, how ridiculous that is. Because like, you're entering into a field where like it's normal for everyone to make like 100 grand a year or more. Like, matter of fact, if you're making less than that, it's either A, you work in general aviation at a small airport like Texarkana, or B, you're doing something wrong and people are going to look at you weird. I know guys that like I would not trust to work on my airplane that are making like $400,000 a year working on 87s in Victorville. So like the fact that like even if it was $100,000, you're going to make that money back up pretty quick. So the fact that it's just $1,000 for the first semester plus the fees is like pretty cheap. But that's a good question. So what else y'all got?
So how heavy on the book work is it going to be? Because you mentioned that we're going to be mostly in the hangar. So are we
Yes.
going to go on like is there going to be, first of all, is there going to be classwork time? And then second of all, is it going to be based off like the 4313 or other types of books, whatever?
Right.
That
So,
makes
okay, that's a good question. All right. So if you're familiar with the Khan Academy, that's who we've kind of modeled everything after. My goal is to minimize your time in the classroom as much as humanly possible. Now, there's some things that we're just not going to be able to get around. Like I'm working on a class project right now with digital logic. There's just not really a good way to try to facilitate the training of 20 people in digital logic other than handing them a worksheet. So there's like little one-offs with there. So this is how it's going to work. You're going to watch a YouTube video, and like you should have gotten a email from the college or me that has the link to our YouTube. If not, it's just like Learn TXK on YouTube, and you can pull up all of our videos. And I'm adding steadily to them as time goes on. You're going to watch that video, and that's going to go like way in the weeds of everything that you'd ever want to know. You'll take a written test, and then and that will count towards your grade in the course. And that written test is nothing more than Glime's Aviation's prepware to prep for whatever test you're getting ready to take, or the actual general airframe or power plant test. Now, all of that we've based it off of the 8083 and then dash 30B, 31, 32, whatever semester we're in, so general airframe and power plant. All of that is free online. It's the FAA says this is what we're going to test you on, and then they say like, and this is the book that we're going to go off of when we're testing you. And so there's no need to buy books or anything else like that because the federal government has already given it to you. And so all we've done is we've taken it and we've put it into a very easy format for you to either listen to or watch or or whatever, and where you can read the 8083 right along with it, because I frequently cite it so that way you know where I'm at in the book. The only additions to it that like you're going to find everywhere else is I have a 737 general familiarization course that I've spliced into it. The reason for that is that we're supposed to be focused on heavy commercial aviation. So when we're talking about like pedostatic systems, I'm going to say, here's what a pedostatic system is. Here's what it looks like in the 8083. Here's what it looks like on a small airplane. And this is how it looks like whenever it's grown into maturity on a 737. It's very, very much more complicated. And there are with the other parts and pieces. And we talk through all of that. So you're getting a unique approach that you're getting the regular 147 curriculum, but it's interlaced with a Gen Fam, just like if you were to get hired on at American Airlines. Before you ever touch anything, you're going to have to be FAM qualified on whatever airframe they're going to assign you to. So yeah, does that answer your question?
Yes, very much.
Okay, sweet. What else? See you later, Magone. All right, what else?
Will you be able to email back over the entrance test if available?
Yeah, it's if you will just send me an email, I'll respond to it with a canned email, and that canned email will have links to everything that you need. It'll have the YouTube account that you can watch, and then I'll throw a link to the 8083 in there, and then you can kind of like start reading through it.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would encourage you guys to read that. So, like, kind of like back history on me is I joined the Army whenever I was 18 because I didn't want to go sit in a classroom. Whenever I did that, I showed up and I realized that nobody had their A&P, and I knew that I need to have it in order to do work outside of it. So I just ordered the books and then I read them while I was in Iraq. Matter of fact, I think I still have some of my original 8083, and it's like covered in dirt and oil and crap from getting hauled around on the flight line or whatever else. So I'd launch a helicopter, I'd sit there and I would read, and then I would hop in the Humvee, we'd go back to our shoes, and I'd read on the way back. And you learn a ton by just simply doing that because there's just so much information out there. It's almost impossible for me to give you everything that you could possibly use. And so like the best way to learn, the best way to be good in aviation as a pilot, as a mechanic, or whatever else, is master self-study, because there's just no possible way that any course or anything else is ever going to give you everything that you need to be deadly. Whereas if you can like learn how to teach yourself, well, you're going to be a force to be reckoned with on the flight line. What else you got? Thoroughly answered everybody's questions, apparently. Linda, Hannah, is there anything that like y'all hear that is like a normal question that like that I can answer while we have everybody?
I have a quick question.
Okay. Who's? Oh, hang on. I just hang on a second. Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, I came on a little late and I heard the fees. I was wondering, does financial aid pay for any of this, or is this all out of pocket fee tuition?
So I'll let Linda jump in on that one, but yeah, you can use financial aid for the course.
Yeah,
Okay.
Financial aid will cover the aviation program.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right. Anything else?
What is the start date?
So yeah, so like I'll post this up on YouTube and I'm gonna give you that. There's like there's a long answer to that question, but it's looking like it'll be the beginning of the January semester.
If it's gonna start in August, are you gonna like send us an email just to say, like, just if they happen to get it sooner?
Yeah, if something drastic, if I come into work tomorrow and the FAA is like all your documentation looks good, your walkthrough is tomorrow, and you'll have your 147 certification the day after that, I'll send you guys an email, let you know. But I would give that like a 1% chance of actually happening, because the FAA moves about as fast as I don't want them to. How about that? So. Anything else? Or none? Linda, Hannah, do y'all have anything to?
Well, I was gonna, I don't know if everybody that's on here, if they've all filled out their applications and everything and gotten everything to us, but that would be one of the things that we are trying to keep up with, the list, to make sure we contact these students to say, okay, if you haven't done this, these are the things that you need to get done, so that once we are up and ready to go, they don't have to get us any additional information. Everything's been taken care of, so we can get them registered, get everything going, and they don't have to think about anything else. So that would be the encouraging part, is if they're interested, haven't done the application, haven't turned in transcripts, haven't done the TSI test, let's get everybody taken care of, so when we're ready to rock and roll, we can go.
All right. Yeah, and I'll double down on that, because like there's nothing stopping you here on this side of things except for the FAA. Once the FAA is out of it, we are in full like run mode. And so like if you want to be a part of that, take care of your business sooner rather than later. And the sooner you get in, the higher in the rank order you get, the sooner you'll be able to get admitted, because we're only going to be able to take 20 the first go around, and then it'll be another semester before we get to the next 20. So it behooves you to fill out your paperwork sooner rather than later. All right. So I got emailed a couple of guys. I guess Junior Stone's thing or mic went off, so I'm going to read this. It said, "Did I understand it right that there will be 2 sessions we can choose from, either a morning or an afternoon session?" You understand it right that in the second year, that's the plan. So we follow a crawl, walk, run approach to things. So we're crawling through the first year. We're going slow, and that's important because there's a lot of these projects that we have to do that are very technical, and so like it's conceptual, like this should work. And so what we want to do is we want to test drive it with the first cohort, let them go through and say like, okay, what did work, what didn't work, how do we fix it? Once we have that data, then we'll be able to handle more volume, and we'll be able to say, okay, like what does it look like whenever we have 2 cohorts running simultaneously? And that will come in the second year. Then in the third year, we'll start making some tweaks to try to pump our numbers up, and then they'll probably get even a little bit shorter in having to be here actually time. So yeah, so yes for the second year, no for the first year. All right, so his second question was, I was under the impression that completing this would take 3 semesters. Is it actually 2? No, it is 3 semesters. So the airframe and power plant course is broken down into 3 semesters, and it corresponds with the 3 tests you have to take. So the FAA says you have to take a general aircraft or airframe and power plant test, and that is basically like, it's general. It's like how to taxi an aircraft, how to marshal an aircraft, how to do lines, how to do rigid lines, how to do basic electrical troubleshooting and measurement, what hardware is, what, like, what's, where do we get the aluminum that we use on the airplanes, or composites, or whatever. And they talk through all that stuff, how to do safety wire. That's general. Airframe becomes a lot more specific about airframe. So they're going to talk about a lot of like advanced avionics. And so like you'll have yeah, I'll get to that question here in just a second. So you'll have your avionics, electrical training in general, and then it'll start to go a little bit more advanced in airframe, and then it'll get a lot more advanced when we start talking about like ADS-B and GPS WAS and how all that stuff works and how it integrates with the other systems. And then we'll go on to power plant. And in the airframe, you also do a lot of construction. So you're going to do like sheet metal work, you're going to do composites work, that kind of thing. And then in power plant, we start talking about props and engines. And so we start with like reciprocating engines, and then we go on to turbine engines, and then we talk about propellers and all the things that go with it. And so every single one of those tests corresponds with the semester. So you have a general semester first, then a airframe semester, then a power plant semester. So it is 3 semesters, and it's looking like it's going to be that way for some time. Last question was like, what was the estimated graduating date for the first cohort that starts in January? It would be the end of that calendar year. So you would start in January of 25, you would graduate in December of 25. So it's because it only lasts a year. Okay, so McGowan has sent us a question. It says, is there a separate charge for tools, or is that in the fees? All right, so this was a big debate early on, and you'll indulge me. I'll kind of like relive a little bit of this for you. So the short answer is no, there's no charge for tools. The reason being is that you have 2 different kind of schools of thought in the wide world of aviation. For a long time, you had to show up with your own tools, just like a diesel mechanic would or anything else like that. Now, the lower paying people that didn't have a lot of money, they were the ones that really encouraged a lot of that. They also are a little bit more fly by night in that they didn't have really good tool accountability. Your more prestigious places that you want to go work, if you want to go work at Boeing, if you get like caught with your own tools at Boeing, they'll fire you. And so so that's like a no-no. The airlines were always a mix. It depended on who you worked and on what tools we're talking about. They would say like, hey, look, here's some basic hand tools we want you to have that are yours. They have to meet these parameters, like they have to be etched, they have to be shadowed, they have to be taken care of, because they're very concerned with tool control, because they're having to work on these airplanes and put people on it. And then that was kind of like the landscape for a long time. Well, as the airframe and power plant mechanic shortage became like bigger and bigger, all the industry started saying like, well, why aren't people taking these jobs? Well, one of the things that they came up with was like, oh, well, we're requiring them to buy $5,000 worth of tools before they even show up for the first day of work. And so like, that's just not sustainable. So a lot of these different operations are now starting supplying tools to their mechanics. So like, that's kind of the dynamic now, that you're starting to see this transition from you have to bring your own tools to all of a sudden like we have our own tools in-house, because that they see the tools as a barrier to entry to come into the workforce. Now, the way we approached it was that like, we're going to buy the tools from the get-go. That allows us to control them. So you'll learn about tool control and accountability whenever you get here, but it allows us to like scan them in and out of a parts room, so that way we have accountability of our own equipment, but we also take the burden off of you for buying your tools. And then the person the company that we bought the tools from was Sonic Tools. Sonic is unique in that they say like, if you're a Sonic Tools school, then we're going to turn around and or then we're going to turn and give you a 35% discount on any tools that you buy. Now, I'll tell you, I work with a lot of tools, and I really like Sonic. Like, I wish I could take my toolbox that I have here for myself home, because it's a really good toolbox. And so you think about like, if you're going to spend $5,000 worth of tools, 35% off is not any, a small amount to kind of like bulk at. So it would seem to be a really good deal for us to kind of like get in the modern era and treat our tool room like a tool room, keep you from having to buy the tools yourself, and then also giving you a discount on any tools that you want to buy if you go to a place that requires you to buy tools later on. But that was a really good question. I got another chat question. Jalen Wilson says, I have a question for Miss Linda. I have not been contacted on what I need to do or need to or what I need to finish. Can you email me or on what else I need to do? So I guess Linda, you see that. So just if you'll send her or me an email, we'll respond to you in kind.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and check the list and see where he is. We haven't gotten through the full list yet on checking on everybody, so that's what we're working on. But yeah, I'll make sure I check on it, Jalen.
Okay. All right. So what else? So any other questions? I guess it's free reign to type it in the chat or I'll or just email me. So, it's going once. It's been 35 minutes. So anything else? All right.
Brandon, I do think that has helped Hannah and I kind of figure out some of the questions that some of these students have is how this is set up. So we have a better understanding of it also. We can't answer all the questions, but at least we have a little bit more knowledge.
Right. Is there any questions you guys had specifically that like you've heard come multiple times that I can answer?
I think most of it is, I think the biggest concern has been, when is it going to start? How long is it going to last? What the hours are? Those kinds of things are pretty generic questions as far as for us anyway. Okay. And if it gets anything technical, we send in your direction.
Okay, right. Yeah, I just got another email about the daily schedule. And the schedule is just going to be 8 to noon, Monday through Friday. And that'll be for the first cohort for the first year. Yeah. So Hannah, were you going to say something?
Yes, I just wanted a clarification on that $2,800 fee that was for the, I think you said consumables. So is that going to be like a one-time fee just added on their student account, or is it spread out?
Yeah, it should be a one-time fee. So that way,
first semester.
Yeah, we'll have to look at people that like might show up if they did Tango or whatever, and try to figure out like how do we prorate that fee down. But my understanding is that it'll be assessed to their student account as just a one-time deal, and then that's it.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
You mentioned a little bit before about how the Texarkana Airport is like trying to get 747s, right?
Yeah.
What's the chance upon graduation would that be finished, and would that be a kind of like a shoe-in type employment deal?
Yeah. So okay, there's some of that I can answer, and some of that I can't answer. So bear with me. The easiest way to answer that is kind of like, let's say you're in the first cohort, you would be graduating in January or in December of 2025. So it means January 1, you're available for work. All right. Now, as of right now, what it's going to look like is that the runway project will be finished in 2027. It was supposed to be finished in 2026, but what happened is the instrument landing system on 422, which is the main runway that's getting worked on, was 50 feet inside of the safety fan for the runway, and so they were like, okay, it has to be moved out for it to work properly and for it to meet the safety standards of the runway. So they went to the FAA and they said, hey, we would like extra money to move this shed basically 50 feet. And they said, that's fascinating. It will cost a lot more money than what you think. And there's only a couple of vendors that will allow to do it. And they're booked up until the end of 2026. And we were like, well, that really is not cool, but it is what it is. And so now we'll have a finished runway that basically can't be used by heavy commercial airplanes until the end of 2027 until we move a shed 50 feet at the cost of something like $20 million from the FAA. So they'll take care of that and they'll move it, but that'll stop operations from really kind of taking off until after 2027. Now, in the interim, though, there's multiple smaller carriers that could use our airport as is. So I've sat down with the CEO of Mitsubishi Heavy Industries regional jet division, and so they were very interested in Texarkana. They were very interested in our airport. They were very non-committal about it, but they were kind of exploring different options, and Texarkana was one of them. Now, if those guys get here, then they're going to have a lot of work to do really fast, and they're going to look to contractors. But in the world of aviation, there's always contractors, which people will like use to try to surge the workforce, but they don't really want. What they want is direct to hire, like people that work for them and they're in it with them for the long haul. And that's what most people want to be, direct to hire anyways, because it's where you got all your benefits. Contractors, they're just like a pirate. They're just paying you to play, and then you go away at the end of the contract. So like you could have some of those smaller operations start to come in, but don't expect to see like 47s and 777s or 777X or anything else like that landing here until after 27 because of that little FAA snafu. Yes, but that's a good question. What else? Anything else? Nothing. All right, so if y'all need to get a hold of me, you can look me up on the website. You can always email me. I'm pretty good with email, and like right now I'm building projects, so I'm always at my desk unless I'm running around trying to figure out where something is on the airplane. And so like I'm happy to answer any other questions, but thanks for your participation. That this actually helps more than just yourself by asking good questions. We can record it. We can just put it up, and you can just refer it to hey, go watch this on YouTube, and it'll have a long drawn out discussion about it. It's a lot more efficient way to get the information out. But unless anybody else has any other questions, we'll call that a meeting. Nope. All right. Okay. Well, thanks for being here, guys.
Take it easy.
Have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you.